Today, we are talking about how IoT takes agriculture from concept to full deployment. I am Amanda Flink, the head of global events here at Telit Cinterion, and I will be moderating for us today. I am excited to be joined by Russ Cook, our VP of Technical Sales. He works closely with agriculture-focused customers to solve some of our real-world challenges using connected solutions out in the field. And with that, Russ, we are just going to dive straight into our first question. We hear a lot about smart agriculture, but I think that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. So my first question to you to kind of start us off here is, what are some of the top challenges that farmers and or agribusinesses bring to your team to solve?
Well, thanks, Amanda. It's good to be here, and that's a great question to start off. I would say one of the most persistent challenges in agriculture is managing operations that are in remote and rugged environments. And so this is typically what you're going to find of a farm or an agribusiness. And so there are a few key challenges that they bring to us. One of them being connectivity. So connectivity can be a major obstacle, especially when you're in these rural areas. You can lack reliable network coverage. You may get network drops, and it really can make it difficult to get consistent data collected from the field.
Sure.
Another key challenge that they bring to us would be the environmental conditions, the conditions associated with operations in dusty and moisture environments, extreme temperatures. These environments can really degrade equipment performance, or they can compromise the data accuracy. And farmers and agribusinesses, they want real-time visibility. So they really need to see this data on demand. It gives them visibility into the critical resources, whether that's tank levels, soil conditions, equipment health. They really rely on this data to boost the efficiency of their operation, to reduce waste, and make faster, more informed decisions. And so to kind of wrap this one up, the challenge isn't just about collecting the data, but it's also about ensuring that the data remains accessible, it's accurate, and it's actionable, even under the toughest of field conditions.
Yeah, you talk extreme temperatures. I'm in Texas, so I know all about extreme temperatures. And like you said, it's more than just data, right? It's making sure that the entire system works in any conditions, which kind of leads us to our next question, obviously. How do your teams start to solve these challenges? Like, what does engagement look like when somebody comes to you with those?
So the first thing that we always want to do with any customer is we need to start with a clear understanding of their specific use case. This really includes, what are they trying to monitor? What data do they really need? This could be soil moisture, it could be tank levels, maybe they need to monitor equipment or livestock. And then we need to understand, what decisions do they really hope to improve upon with that data? Once we have a better understanding about that, then we really need to look at the environmental factors. Is the farm in a remote area? What kind of weather and terrain are we going to be working with? And just important, we need to assess power and connectivity constraints. Are there any power sources nearby to power equipment, or is this going to be standalone equipment? And then really looking at the cellular coverage. Do we have good cellular coverage in these areas? Do we need to consider an alternate solution, maybe satellite or some other hybrid approach to connectivity? So once we have that full picture, then we can sit down with the customer. We can recommend the right combination of sensors, connectivity, data platforms that will actually work in their environment and deliver those insights that they're looking for. This is a very collaborative process. We always try to keep things practical and scalable for the application. We work with the farmer. We want to ensure the ROI and the value of that solution is what they expect and need.
Sure. Yeah, that step-by-step partnership is super key, I'm sure. Now, when it comes to hardware in the field, and you've talked about a couple of these different pieces, but what are some critical factors for IoT devices in agriculture environments specifically? Obviously, Telit works in multiple different verticals, and we see a lot of different things. But for agribusiness specifically, I'm sure there's a lot of different key points here.
Yeah, in agriculture, IoT devices, they really need to meet demanding conditions. The first thing I think about is durability, and durability is critical. So you have devices, they're often deployed in remote fields for extended period of time. And in those locations, they're going to be exposed to harsh weather, as you mentioned. This could be, extreme temperatures, dust, even pest interference that you might find in these applications. So the device needs to handle these conditions and be durable and last. Weather resistance, this is really essential too. So the device really has to be maintain its performance through these environmental conditions. When it's raining, the device has to be sealed. We can't have water getting into the device. There might be freezing temperatures as well in some of these locations, and so the device has to work in cold temperatures. And we can't have degradation of the device under those conditions either. The device needs to be reporting accurately the conditions that it's in. Touched a little bit on power. And so what we find is in many of these remote locations, you do not have access to just plug something in like in your home. And so a lot of times you're relying on a battery powered device. And in order to have that device last, we're usually talking about solar power charging. So these devices need to be designed to be efficient. They need to be out in the field for months or even years, lasting on that battery and that solar charger. And then finally, long-term reliability. So the device does need to be dependable and last. It's got to last season after season. The farmer can't be out trying to do maintenance on this every year, troubleshooting what's wrong. It needs to last.
Yeah, and of course, none of that matters without a strong connection, right? So let's talk a little bit about connectivity and why connectivity is such an important piece of smart ag deployments.
Yeah, connectivity is vital. In smart agriculture, the data really is only valuable to you if you can access it. Right. So if your sensors are out in the field, but you can't send the data, due to poor signal or network dropouts, then you're losing visibility into what's happening in the field. So you might miss alerts. You might not know you have irrigation issues or equipment failures or livestock conditions that need to be addressed. So this will definitely lead to delayed decisions, which in farming is going to translate to lost time, reduced yields or wasted resources. So the reliability of the connection is really what ensures that the farmers are going to get those real-time insights when and where they need them. And the key here is really to match the right connectivity option to the environment and the use case. And this is going to be a combination of cellular, satellite, perhaps a hybrid solution based on the location of the devices and the environment.
Yeah. And so once a customer has a working solution, right, they're likely going to want to scale it, especially with how large some of these different operations are, right? So what are some of those key considerations for managing and specifically scaling smart agriculture solutions?
Sure. So once a farmer and agribusiness has a solution that works for them, then they really ask the next question, which is how do we scale it efficiently across equipment, more acres or locations? And this is kind of broken into three parts. So the first aspect is remote management and monitoring. So centralizing the monitoring and control is essential. It's very inefficient to try to physically visit the location, troubleshoot devices, or upgrade software. A centralized dashboard is going to allow a team to manage those devices very effectively, saving time and ensuring that the operation runs smoothly. Second is scalable connectivity. So the connectivity that has to scale with the deployment. And for cellular-based solutions, this really includes streamlining the SIM provisioning process. So when a device is brought to the field, again, we can't have people manually activating every single device. It really needs to have an auto provisioning so that the device can come up, connect to the back end, automatically provision itself and come online. We also need to look at technologies like eSIM and multi-carrier support, especially in areas where we have inconsistent coverage. This can be really important because when you have multi-carrier support on a SIM, that means you have multiple carrier selections. And so a farmer doesn't have to guess at what coverage he has in a specific location. The device itself can automatically manage that for them, so they don't have to worry about carrying a SIM card for one carrier or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's infrastructure readiness. So really the underlying infrastructure, and that's everything from the network side to the data platform. You really have to support growth. So adding new devices, shouldn't introduce complexity. The data volume, the reporting frequency, all this is known up front. And it's very important to select the right cellular technology for the amount of data that's being collected and transmitted, the right rate plans, but also the platform bandwidth has to be known up front as well, so that when you scale, you don't run into problems with the platform.
Yeah, sure. A lot of different complex pieces here, right? And let's go just a little bit deeper here, because we've talked a little bit about the challenges, right? But what are some of the biggest opportunities for smart agriculture? Where do you see a lot of impact right now? How is IoT, forcing change?
Right now, some of the biggest opportunities are the areas where that real-time visibility is definitely leading directly to better resource management and reduced labor costs. Right? These are the benefits that farmers want to realize. One example I can give you is for tank monitoring. A tank may be filled with water or fertilizer or fuel, and today sending somebody out to check those levels manually is a time-consuming and inefficient operation.
Mm-hmm.
But you do need to know what those levels are on a regular basis. You don't want to run out of water or fertilizer or fuel and not know it. And so when you look at connecting that tank with sensors, now you can get those levels remotely. In fact, you can even manage to get alerts when refills are needed, or you can even automate delivery schedules through your back end. So that's a huge win, especially when you have many tanks located in all these kind of remote areas. Another high impact area that we've seen is in soil and environmental sensors. So these are providing continuous data, on moisture and temperature and even nutrient levels in the soil. So this can help farmers make more precise decisions about when and where to irrigate or to fertilize plants. And the benefit they're going to see is higher yields with fewer inputs. So that's a win, both in productivity and sustainability. Finally, we're seeing some growing impact now from connected weather stations, livestock monitoring, a little bit of automated irrigation systems, all driven by IoT. Whenever there's a manual check that can be turned into a real-time remote monitoring option, there's definitely an opportunity to save time, to reduce waste, improve the outcomes.
Yeah, it's the epitome of work smarter, not harder, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, hardware is only one piece of this, right? You've talked a lot about managing data, data at scale. That's another big lift. How do customers typically handle both data aggregation and integration within their existing applications?
Yeah. Hardware and the data coming from the field, that's just one aspect. That's the beginning of how the whole system works. But once devices are deployed, that data needs to be managed. And those devices are going to generate a lot of data. And it needs to really fit into the customer's broader operation so that they can make sense of all this data that's coming to them. So we usually start this with device management. And as I mentioned a little bit before, this means there's a platform where the customer is able to see the status of their sensors or gateways in the field. They might be able to push firmware updates. They can ensure data is flowing properly. So this is going to reduce downtime. It helps them stay in control without needing IT teams in the field. They can manage all these assets in one pane of glass, if you will.
Yeah.
Then really, when you think about the data aggregation and integration, most farms or agribusinesses, they already use some kind of farm management system or an ERP tool. So they are very familiar with a work stream and how they want to use data. And so what we can do is we can integrate the data into those existing platforms. And that's usually done through APIs or some kind of integration layer. But the goal here is to make that data actionable in a system that they already work with, right? So they're already familiar with dashboards and how they want to set things up for their operation. So it's easy to start generating alerts based on activities in the field, or they can create reports for compliance and planning with a system that is already familiar to them.
Yeah, sure. I think we've really kind of learned here how these different pieces work together to, not only ensure that agribusinesses are, smart, right, but that they're scalable and reliable and manageable no matter how remote the solution is. You mentioned the different environmental challenges and things like that. I think this has been a really great discussion. Russ, thanks again for joining. For sharing your insights here. I'm hoping that our listeners can, take something back to their business that's actionable.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to do the webinar with you.
Yeah. Audience, feel free to check out the resources section here for some more information on our topic today. You can visit telit.com to explore more blogs, webinars, other articles on this topic here. And thanks for joining us. Have a good one.